Okay, so we're here with Peter MacFayden and some folks around the Climate Emergency Centre network to hear Peter MacFayden about Flatpack Democracy, really amazing project. You can hear more on stage. Should we just go around and do a quick check-in how people are, and we ask people to put where they're from next to their name helps. I'll change to Phoenix, London. You want to come over to Debs? Do you want to just do a quick check-in, you or how the centre's going? Over.
Yeah, centre's going great. We've got apple pressing tomorrow. So we've got a lady, she's going to bring an apple pressing and all the surplus apples that have conveniently fallen off the trees for us. So we're going to be giving it that and getting people to bring the bottles to fill up. And that's us.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Pass to Alex in Islington.
Okay, yes, I'm ready. I'm not going to show my picture tonight, if that's okay. I might do later. I've just had a medical procedure earlier this week. I had a gamma knife radiosurgery because I've had brain cancer, and they discovered more tumours, as they often do, in a regular MRI. So I was feeling quite miserable about that because it was totally unusual. It was painful and horribly long, and usually they're super short and painless. So I'm feeling a little bit stressed by that still. Sending you lots of love and healing. I hope things clear for you. Help soon. Sending lots of love. Thank you. Okay, do you want to come over to Ken in sunny North Dorset? Just quick check out who you are or anything on the centre or project or team you're working on. Over.
I'm actually a bit of a fraud. I'm an imposter here. I'm just keeping an eye on our guys down in Weymouth who are getting a CEC group going. I just wish I could be with them. Oh, sorry about that. Great fat bum in my face. Yeah, so I'd just like to keep an eye on it. I ideally wish I could be involved, but circumstances won't allow it at the moment. I've got some family issues going on. Got family health issues, so but I want to keep in touch with it all because when I do get a chance, I will be in there helping out when I can. Right, Julian, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we've got a community hub which is going quite well. Always looking for good things to do there. We had a good vegan fair at the weekend, which has went down very well. Involved a lot of people, and it's sort of gently environmental. And yeah, you know, keep an eye on all the democracy stuff going on at the moment as well. So looking forward to tonight. Thanks. So pass over to Sue.
Hi, I think it's me that you're saying hello to, Julian. I'm Suzanne. I'm one of the organisers at Talking Tree and things in Staines in Surrey. Yeah, things are going well there. We just had a eco cleaning workshop on Saturday run by one of our volunteers, Rima, and that got some really good feedback from the participants. And just planning stuff for Christmas now. We've got an kind of sustainable Christmas fair coming up and various volunteer gatherings. So yeah, all going well.
Do you know if Ness is coming? I know she was really keen for the last date Peter was going to do. No,
yeah, I don't. It was Vanessa who shared the link with me. So and from her messages, my assumption is she is going to be on the call, but she's obviously been a bit delayed.
Okay, hopefully she'll beam in a bit. Well, we'll carry on. Do you want to pass to someone? Oh,
I'll pass to Helen. Helen 2. Helen the original.
Oh.
I got in there quick when I saw another Helen coming. What am I telling you?
Just quick, how you are, any or leads, any just quick update, just quick check-ins, really.
No, I think I'll just say hello. I'm having one of those days where everything goes wrong, so no. I'll say happy birthday instead.
Nice. All right, should we pop over to Helen, the other Helen? Whereabouts in the country are you, Helen?
Seaford in Sussex.
Seaford.
Yeah, we've just had the Extinction Rebellion bus visited us at the weekend, and we held a very little People's Assembly with them, so that was interesting. And mostly at the hub, we're just sort of working on consolidating our volunteers, how we work with volunteers, because we're all feeling a bit frazzled. So we're looking at how we can make it more sustainable. But it's all good, but that's what we're doing.
Takes a lot of love, community work and keeping these centres
Yeah.
going. You're in the old, were you still in the Nat West Bank? Was it the Seaford one?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, there's water pouring in the roof past the electrics, but apart from that, it's fine.
Batten down the hatches.
Yeah.
We've always wanted to get a bank and create our own community currency, I think was one of the dreams, like the Brixton Pound, the top left down. Okay, has everyone checked in? Yep, I'll do a quick check-in. I'm down in sunny Brighton for my birthday, visit an old friend, which is lovely. Nice down the lanes. Without too much further ado, I think we should come over to Peter, who you can do a quick check-in and then dive into the subject. So Peter's going to talk about Flatpack democracy, something we're really excited about in the Climate Emergency Centres network. What's to say, we know that our mainstream politics is broken. And, a lot of the time the mainstream parties only do what they're told from the head office and not what the local people want. Well, this is an amazing thing that they've done down in Frome that I'm sure Peter's going to tell you more about, but we would like to see in the long term through Climate Emergency Centres, the centres having every couple of months or every month a People's Assembly to decide what they want to put into the central organising coordinator circle and also out to the local council. The first one of them happened the other week in Islington. They had one on clean air and local Islington clean air parents. But also we're very interested in teaming up with Flatpack Democracy and Peter and showing groups how they could do Flatpack Democracy in their area if their local politicians aren't actually representing what they want. I think we've got a couple more check-ins, Peter, if that's okay, and we'll come over.
Sure.
Linda, do you want a quick check-in, just how you are or projects, and then over to Neil Johnson. Linda, quick check-in.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Everything's going well here at the Space Generators headquarters. We are launching our new job placement program. So we have lots of trainee and internship availabilities if anyone needs anybody. And we'll be transitioning into green job training really, really soon. That's it for me.
That's exciting. Accelerate the green transition and create some green jobs in renewables and other. Neil, do you want a quick check-in? And then we'll come over to Pius, I think it's coming in from Uganda. Neil. Whereabouts are you in the country now?
Not sure whether you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm from Cornwall. So yeah, just dipping in to see what this is all about. Very interested in real democracy.
Definitely, that would be nice. Definitely. Should we come and whereabouts? Sorry, did you say you were, Neil? In Cornwall.
Yes, in Cornwall. So yeah, we're very much a conservative sort of rural dominated economy, but completely ignoring the effects of the climate emergency. It's just business as usual down here.
Mm-hmm. Coming over to Pius from Uganda. Can you hear us, Pius? You want to just check in? I have to ask you to unmute, I think. Just if you can hear us, just check in how you are, or the Pius does the schools teaching kids about climate change, I think. Can you hear us, Pius? Hello.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
It's a good evening this way. We are 9 and I'm still moving back home. Hope everyone is good.
Okay, we're very glad you can make it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and last in through the door at the moment. I'm sure some others join, but we'll introduce Meryl and then dive over to Peter. Okay, Meryl, do you just want to introduce yourself? Just a quick check-in how you are, or where are you around the country, or are you linked with the project? Over, Meryl. Ask to unmute. I've unmuted you, right? Have to unmute. Meryl. Okay, Meryl, can you hear us? Okay, if not, I'm going to dive. I think we dive over to Peter and just get things started. So, Peter, without too much further ado, Meryl, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I just need to change my name. I'm Mary I, because there's another Mary in my group. But I'm in Woking. We have a CEC, so I'm all ears, and I'll let you get on with it. Thank you.
Right, whereabouts is your CEC?
In Woking.
Woking. Oh, great. With Sean, I think. Okay, so Peter, thank you very much for coming. You wrote the book on this, so yeah, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Flatpack Democracy. Thank you very much for coming. Over.
No problem. I'm in semi-sunny Frome. Yes, and I'm fine in terms of where I'm at. I thought I wasn't fine. I thought I had something going wildly wrong with my eye, and then I went and had it checked, and it's fine. I'm just old. That's what's happened. Some glutinous stuff isn't as non-glutinous as it was. Hey, while I'm thinking about it, Debs, if you want, we've just pressed lots of apples, and I pasteurised them in a Burco boiler, which was incredibly successful. And you've got, you know, the big boilers that you have in sort of village halls, because you've got the capacity, because it's got a thermostat on it. You can fit 20 bottles in it and then pasteurize them, and they last for a year. Anyway, enjoy your apple pressing. So Phoenix has asked me ages ago to pop in and do one of these talks, and then something happened the last time, can't remember what, and then time has gone by, but here I am, waterless. I think I'll be all right. I might have to dash off. Anyway, let's see. I've suddenly had a desire for water. Seems I kind of, when I was writing a few notes earlier on, I thought it's irresistible to say something about what's happened in the last month. So I will say something, but essentially what I'm going to talk about is my experience of being a town councillor for 8 years, and then which I then wrote up as a couple of books, and then what that's led to in terms of trying to encourage people to do things a bit differently. I'm going to try and use the word democracy as little as possible, because we haven't got one. We never have had one. We do actually, you know, live in an oligarchy, if you hadn't noticed. And one of the good things I think that's come out of the last month, because as I say, you can't resist saying something, is that it's all a bit more obvious now, or it should be. You see what I mean? What happened, particularly with Liz Truss, is that you know, it all got exposed much more than perhaps they and others would have liked, and has been laid out as what's actually going on. We're not alone in this, I don't think. I don't think there's anywhere in the world that has a democracy, actually. There's places like Taiwan who are doing lots of really interesting stuff, and there are places and countries that are doing interesting stuff. But what's happened is exactly what the Greeks said would happen. I mean, the Greeks who invented democracy, basically it was all centered around sortition, random selection. The same thing as is proposed for XR's demand around citizens' assemblies. You know, that they basically said, if you have voting, the people with the money will skew the system. It will lead to endless corruption, and the richest people will win. You know, they're so clearly right now. So what we've got is or what people say we have is something called representative democracy. And actually, they're right. We do have representative democracy. But the trouble is that the people who are in power represent the people with the money. You see what I mean? They don't actually represent the people who voted for them, or the people who theoretically they represent. So it is representative democracy, but it's just not quite as it was intended. And I don't think, personally, I don't think that will change. My experience of a long life is that turkeys don't vote for Christmas, and I don't think that will change. And things like the police and crime bill and whatever Cruella invents next to threaten, you know, good Guardian readers like me. I mean, that's how dictatorships behave. So it's no surprise to me that we're getting screwed down with things like that, which will make it even harder for any other for ways that might have been democratic in inverted commas, but might have involved the people to really happen. And I don't think, personally, I don't think violent revolution was ever really an option, because violent revolutions, the history of violent revolutions is that they just lead to more violent revolutions. So they kind of might work in the short term. You know, one dictator takes over from another, and again, the people don't really benefit. So, but I don't think it definitely won't work now, even if it was ever going to. And so I entered this whole game thinking, I don't quite, you know, we can't change the top. I don't want to get involved in a system that is so patently dysfunctional and corrupt. So what else can you do, really? And I kind of concluded, I suppose, that what I needed to do was to try and make the system at a community level work better. That if we could, that the only way to actually get people involved in making the decisions that change their lives was to essentially take over the existing system at a community level, or close to a community system, and then try and make it work better, or try and make it actually serve the people. So what I thought I'd do, I'm not going to talk for massively long, but I thought I'll just sort of tell you the story of my involvement in Frome briefly, and I'll try and do this particularly around bits related to climate change and so on, but also to engagement and participation, because for me that's what all this focuses on. And then I've got a few more bits and pieces I wanted to say, and then we'll sort of open this up to questions and see where you want to take it, really. But I mean, that's the background as to kind of why I got involved, although more directly, I got involved out of the Transition Town movement, because I was involved in setting up a Sustainable Frome, which was actually just before Transition Towns. I know Rob, I was going to say Hopkins. I know him well, can't remember his name. Rob, who set up Transition Town as well. And, you know, and over the years, we've interchanged a lot. In terms of what's politics and what isn't politics. But I was involved in setting that movement up in Frome, and part of that was to go to the town council, ask them what they were doing about climate change and peak oil. I did that, went to the council, and they said, we've got a park. And I said, yes. I was thinking, you know, I was thinking a bit bigger than that. I was thinking slightly more ambitious. And they essentially said, well, there isn't that, we don't do ambition. You know, that's what we are. And I mean, Frome had an absolutely bog standard town council. Frome's 30,000 people in Somerset, by the way, if you didn't know. And politically based, people stood either primarily as Lib Dems or Tories, and they changed over every 4 years, but they were all mates, and they'd all been there for years and years. Labour did get in once for a short while, but it only was for a short while, you know. So absolutely standard, but very unambitious. And a group I and a group of others met in a pub, really to talk about, I mean, to moan about how unambitious and pathetic this was, really. And what we realized is that austerity was about to happen. And there was a lot of concern that town councils, that basically money wouldn't be coming from above. You know, money that used to come from counties and districts wasn't going to be happening, and central government wasn't going to be happening. So we were going to get screwed on this way. But also there was something called localism, which David Cameron was inventing at the time. He said, we're going to take the power from the political elite and give it to the man and woman on the street, which is very unlike David Cameron, you would have thought. But and of course it was all bollocks. But the idea was that localism would give power to local levels, or that's what, you know, it was what we were told. And on paper it looked really interesting. And then, as I say, we'd seen how divisive party politics were in the town. So we thought, let's do something which is not party politics, which you know, uses the Localism Act and gets as much power and much decision making as we can get and make it at the local level, and that might help us to deal with austerity. And we held a meeting in a pub, easily found, well, we kind of found ourselves by mistake with 17 people who wanted to stand for 17 seats. I say by mistake because at the beginning, all we wanted to do was to raise some issues, make some little films, use social media, which was kind of a bit new at the time, and sort of take the piss out of what existed. But then we suddenly realized that actually Frome Council, actually, it turns out, in my view, most of the 10,000 parish and town councils in the country was there for the taking. You know, as I say, this bunch of old people who, I'd say old, yeah, they were all old, really. They were very complacent and had never really had to, we hadn't had elections in every seat for years. And that's true of most places. You know, Dorset in the last time round, only less than half of the parish and towns were contested at all. You know, so this level of so-called democracy is absolutely pathetically dysfunctional, as I say. So we got together, we ran a very exciting, we ran a very upbeat campaign. 75% more people voted and 10 of us got elected. And what we said was, all we said to the people was, we'll do two things. One, this is how we as a group will behave. So we had a way of working. We said, this is our ethos, which was essentially, we won't do conflict. We'll disagree because we're not actually a bunch of friends. We don't know each other particularly. We don't come from any particular party political direction. And indeed, we ranged from pretty far left to very far right within that, those who got elected. But what we'll do is we'll listen to each other. Sort of, what a weird idea, and actually be prepared to change our minds, be prepared to accept things. If you get defeated in a vote, you won't hold that against the person, against that person and vote against them next time, even though their idea was good. Basically, we'll do something slightly different from what's normally done, or certainly at a national level. So that was how we said we'd work as a group of us, and then we said that we would ruthlessly go out to the people. So we would engage and participate way more. Now, XR didn't exist at this point, of course. So citizens' assemblies, people's assemblies, these things didn't exist. But that's the kind of thing we were thinking we would do. Not so much citizens' assemblies using sortition, but people's assembly, having big public meetings. Anyway, that's what we said we'd do. We were very aware that right from the beginning that we didn't know things. So we wanted to, we didn't believe in representative democracy. As I've mentioned, it doesn't work. How can I possibly know what all these people who I apparently represent think? So we knew that didn't work. We also knew there was loads of wisdom in the town that we wanted to use. So we essentially said we want to do this differently, where the town council will become just one of the players in the town. And its role is to catalyze, to encourage, to support, so it was all of those kind of things. So that's what we stood on as a I was going to say manifesto, but it wasn't a manifesto at all, really. It was just this is how we will behave if you vote for us. And as I say, 10 out of 17 people voted for, 10 out of 17 people were elected. So suddenly we're in power, which was very exciting. Because one of us, none of us had been councillors before, but one of us had worked in a council, so he knew the rules. And so at the first meeting, what normally happens at the first meeting is entirely and utterly bonkers. What normally happens is that there's an enormously long agenda, and you elect a mayor or a chair, and then you start wading your way down this agenda, which goes on for hours and hours. And it involves electing people onto committees and electing people onto what are called outside bodies, which are basically have the other groups within the town. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. You get elected. Nobody, who am I? Do I know anything about finance? What does a finance committee know? You don't do any of that. You get elected to all these things. So anyway, what we did was elected a mayor, who then and then the next item was meant to be all this stuff about electing things, but we inserted one which basically said we're going to suspend the meeting. So we suspended the meeting at that point, and we also suspended the standing orders, which are the rules, because we knew we could. And incidentally, others councils have now gone on to do this. And it basically meant that we just said we're going to hold this for a moment. And some of the councillors who were the old councillors, well, one in particular I can think of, burst into tears and said, I knew you were a bunch of Marxists and, all this crap about not having a manifesto, you fooled the people of Froome. And we kind of said, so what decisions? We're going to have a meeting in 2 weeks' time. What's going to happen? What needs to happen? And it's like, well, we're going to decide about the toilets. It's like, well, it's honestly, it was a really good thing to do. We then put together a slightly different way of doing things. We had 2 committees instead of 8, and all sorts of things. Basically, we just said, we kept asking the clerk, why do we do that? And his answer nearly always was, because we always do, which was like a red rag to a bull. And so we've got rid of basically all the stuff that seemed to be unnecessary, but with the understanding that if people wanted it back again, or if it was, if we were wrong, if there was a good reason why such and such a thing happened, then fine, bring it back. but show us that it's necessary, kind of thing was the thing. One of the main things we try to do is make things way more informal. So first name terms. Have any of you ever been to council meetings at any level? You have this bollocks where you have to book in first. You have to, then you get sort of like 2 or 3 minutes to talk, usually, and then you're cut off. In some councils, there's literally a sort of clock that's kind of going tick, 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 and it goes bing, you know, yeah, exactly. And if you're mid-sentence, that's it. And then those who are listening, you know, the row of men in suits who are listening to you, they don't have to respond at all. They don't have to say thank you. They don't, it's, you know, it's so rude. It's like, you know, this is something you really care about. You've come to talk to them about the climate or something, you know, you really, really care about it. You're standing there shivering with fear, and this bunch of, it's, you know, unbelievable. Anyway, we were told that what will happen is that you'll get all sorts of people who will come and rant about this and that and ruin your meetings. It never happened. My experience over the whole of 8 years was that if you treat people with respect, then they'll treat you with respect, and they'll recognize the system. And of course, it means that the chair has to be a good, you know, has to be able to handle the meeting and has to be able to kind of go, okay, Phoenix, we've got that now, you know, and you know, and we have got a long agenda. And then you kind of say, oh yeah, no, sorry, I do bang on a bit, you know, and you know, it kind of like it works. But if you've got this thing with the timer, it will just, people got so angry, of course, and then they storm out angrily and then carry on being angry. Anyway, that's a good example of the kind of things we got rid of. And then we hugely increased the grant to the voluntary sector. So I think it was 10 grand when we came in, and we made it 110 immediately, so that we were putting way more of the tax back into the people. 2 members of staff to help support organizations, and another someone who we contracted in to help fundraise. Because this was going back to what I was saying about austerity. We realized that we needed to bring more money into the town. And the best way to do that will be to strengthen the voluntary sector hugely, and then guide the voluntary sector organizations towards funds. You know, so, and that's been hugely successful over the last, whatever it is now, 15 years. So masses of money has come into Frome through strengthening organizations in that way. We did indeed produce something which are very like, I'll get these muddled every time, don't I? Citizens' assemblies, people's assemblies, very like people's assemblies. What we said is we want you, the people, to help us with some areas of strategy. So for instance, a number of people have said there's no strategy around sport in Frome. The resources are terrible, you know, we need to have better resources. And we looked around and went, well, none of us know anything about sport. But anyway, obviously there's loads of people involved in sport. And so we held a meeting first, and you know, 10 people came or something. We had a meeting in the main town building, and we realized we had to change that. It was never going to work. It wasn't what we said we'd do. So then we set out what we called panels, actually on this and 5 other areas of strategy. We held meetings in the cricket club, the rugby club, and the football club. The bars are open, you know, 70, 80 people turn up, you know, people who never normally talk to each other came. And what we said was, look, these will be 2 hours each, and then the bar will stay open. There'll be really well facilitated meetings, which they were, you know, discussions on tables, the stuff which would be very familiar with anyone now who's done sort of, you know, the sort of work which you're doing in climate emergency centres and so on, but really involving people and listening to them properly in ways that had never happened before. And so the first meeting kind of was basically people getting to know each other. The second one, they started bringing together strategy. The third one, that sort of brought it together. And then that became a strategy which we adopted all of, because we could. Because again, people didn't, you know, they didn't take a piss. There wasn't loads of let's have a ski slope and let's have a, you know, people understood what they were being asked, or was being asked of them. And I would say again, because they were being taken seriously, properly listened to, what they came up with was things which would work. Masses of it didn't cost anything. You know, it's like, as I say, people hadn't talked to each other, like the 2 rival football clubs were in one room, and it's like you got these conversations. I was in one of them, which was like, oh, we've got bollards. Yeah, you can have them on a Thursday. You know, it's like, which they never would have talked to each other. So most of it kind of happened just informally. So as I say, there was another whole load of those things, which also, because those strategies were then owned by the people properly, to me, that was a little nugget of democracy. It wasn't in the way that you'd think of democracy in the sense of voting, but it meant that people's ideas actually became the strategy, which then a budget was put to, which then the staff, and the people made happen. A lot of the stuff was green, green as in environmental, a lot of what we got involved in, because it was common sense, not politics. I mean, many of you and others who listen to this will probably, vote green and be involved in green politics, but, I'm a sort of someone who completely obviously should be a green candidate, but I wasn't. I was independent, and I'm quite sure that because we were independent and behaved as we did, we've got more done because there wasn't opposition. You see what I mean? Because there wasn't opposition from the district and the county and other levels, because the ideas came from us and from the people. And who wouldn't want less pollution and more trees and all the things that we all want? But if you wrap it up and it comes from the Green Party, you have to oppose it because that's the way the system works, which, at the risk of repeating myself, is also bollocks. So one of the best examples of this, pretty much finally, is Compassionate Froome. What's that? We've got one health centre which has been always into oh God, what's it called? Where you subscribe. I'll remember in a minute. Anyway, basically, instead of subscribing drugs for things, they can subscribe engagement in community activities. Social prescribing. Thank you very much. So they've been into that for some time, but the town council and then others funded a sort of fantastic setup whereby the health centre can prescribe in that way, and then there are 4 or 5 members of staff who help people to actually take up what's on offer. You know what I mean? Because so I might have been prescribed going for walks for my mental health challenges, but I didn't, I never did it. But if somebody actually came with me and introduced me to people doing it and helped me to get into that thing, then it would happen. That's been massively successful, and they were very clever at the health centre that they did a lot of early research and have proven that this work has saved millions of pounds, which has then meant that it's all got funded again later. It's all very well written up. So Compassionate Froome is now a whole book and there's lots of papers on that. And incidentally, in this somewhere along the line, as Felix said at the beginning, I wrote Flatpack Democracy and Flatpack Democracy 2. Flatpack Democracy is how to take power, and number 2 was kind of what happened. Number 2 is more about sort of ego and things like that, and some of the hurdles and things that we did hit and we and others did that went wrong. In 2021, a bunch of us thought, we're in lockdown, let's see if we can really roll this out. There are 10,000 parish councils. Let's see if we can, the way to the future is for all of them to have their own system like this. It was an abject failure, really. And that's what I'd say some days. There are about 20 or 30 places who we supported who now have a very similar kind of model. And, and on a good day, I'd kind of say, I know that for the people of, say, Bude or Hexham or Raymond Maker and Haswells in Durham, life will never be the same. So great. So, that was a huge success. It was a hell of a lot of work. I and others ran meetings every week, and we really sort of handheld a lot of people in their or not handheld, that's unfair to them, but we really tried to support them a lot in their campaigns. And it just feels like people are really set in the way that they are. It's tragic, but it proved to be very, very difficult to get particularly enough candidates to make a difference. Where people did, fantastic. Places particularly like Bude, who I love, where they completely wiped out an old, terrible, terrible council. And among other things, they now operate with all decisions have to take the future generations into account, as well as the current one, in the same way as the Welsh government, which is fantastic and completely unique in a town council. There's lots of interesting things in Cornwall, incidentally, going on, particularly down in the southwest. So that was one of the things, as I say, I vacillate between thinking it was a great thing to do and it was a complete waste of time. But I know it wasn't for some places. And then really the final thing I want to say is that I've come to see where this all sits in a bit of a different light. And I'm going to share a slide with you in a second, but I've kind of realized that things like this how to take power in small places and so on, it can really work with ideas like climate emergency centres and transition towns and a newly vibrant RSPB and you know, in ways that can really lead to change. And I was talking to about this to someone the other day, and they said, what you're describing is the Bacana 2 loops model. I thought, oh, am I? Anyway, I want to show you the Bacana 2 loops model before I finish. I'm going to share my screen if I can.
Yep.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Can you see my mouse on it?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So this is like the sort of the normal political system, which is crashing down to its death and compost, incidentally. I mean, and this is, I would say, is at all levels of, you know, at a local level as well as a national one. And what is often done, what's often described is how a new movement will sort of rise up and kind of take over like that. But this 2 loops model has these, basically says that what you get is this whole load of other little groups who struggle away, a bit like I was just describing with Flatpack, and probably, you know, you've all felt in different ways in different groups you're in. And then at a certain point, they start linking together and become something much more emergent. And then, you know, it's that coming together moment that can really then, you know, boost things up. And at that moment, at the moment as that system is starting to emerge and the old one is dying, you then get a lot of rats that leave the ship. No, I shouldn't call them that, but you get a lot of perhaps the non-rats will sort of jump ship, this transition that the best of the dominant system who realize they're in a failing system will move across quite quickly. And the woman who I was talking to also said you get lots of interesting stuff when you get more into this. There's lots of interesting stuff about excuse me, tipping points. But you know, you don't need a lot of people to take that leap, or a lot of organizations and you know, there'll be a moment at which suddenly people will see the emergent system, and then whoomp, it all goes. Anyway, I thought it kind of described what I'm talking about. So I see something like Flatpack as having a role down here in this, you know, in these being a model that's been tried and can work and has got lots of ideas in different places, as has the work that you're all involved in climate emergency centres in their different variants, you know, and those coming together. And going back to what I said at the beginning, I think there is something really interesting about this, you know, the exposure that we've had in the last couple of months, that people like the RSPB, I mean, the members of organizations who you just wouldn't expect to be involved have kind of gone, hang on a minute, this is, you know, they've seen what's going on. So potentially they're part of that movement in a way that they weren't 4 or 5 months ago. And I think that's very exciting. So that, my friends, is a rather garbled and slightly breathless voyage through the last decade of my life and my thoughts on, you know, how this might possibly be useful, you know, in emerging a system that, my God, we need. You know, we needed it before, but we need it even more now, and that we need it even quicker. Because, as I say, I can't see how we cannot change the system, you know, using the tools of the system, or whatever that phrase is, of the oppressor. Back to you, Phoenix. You can control this mob however you like.
Inspiring. Thank you very much, Peter. That's an incredible journey, and never doubt along the way that you've changed many people's lives and seeded something absolutely incredible. Both transition towns and, you know, a lot of people have talked about Flatpack democracy and the work you're doing and stuff. Very interesting journey. We'll go to questions shortly. Julian, the Swindon team leading the way there. Just to say to people, down at the bottom, there's a reactions little circular face. If you press that, you can raise your hand like that, and then I'll know who's 1, 2, and 3. That helps. We can tell who's who. So if you do want to ask a question to Peter, I've got a few bits I want to ask there, but I'll let the rest of the University Challenge panel jump in on Peter first of all. So over to sunny Swindon, Julian, you're start off at 10 to Peter. Over to Julian, then Neil number 2. Over.
Thanks, Phoenix, and thanks, Peter. Very interesting. I haven't looked into it before, though people have told me about it before, so I'm glad I've heard about it. Thank you very much. So you're, I guess, a second tier sort of council, and of course, a lot of the things like social care planning and stuff, are done at usually the sort of next tier up, I presume. Is that right? And how have you managed to sort of move into those spheres, or I mean, how much of what happens in councils do you sort of cover?
So as a town level, in one sense, not very much, but actually but that's where the actual organization, so by sort of bypassing the system, the medical center working with the community is what produced the it's technically called Mendip Health Connectors, the health connector system that became a compassionate room. So it's sort of it flies under the radar, which is one of the things that I think is so interesting about this level. So councils at a higher level are capped; they can't raise more taxes than what it is now, 2% or something. They can't. But at the town and parish level, you can raise it 100% if you want. We did. We doubled the tax, and lo and behold, unlike what we have been told, was she really called mistrust? I can't believe that. Anyway, whatever she said, it's like that. You have to keep decreasing taxes. It's bollocks. If people, I would say again, when people understand they're involved in the decisions, we never had any problem. So you can do things at this level, and in a sense, you can fly under the radar. I would say, certainly to a large extent, and and also I don't know what other options there are.
Julian, yeah, that answer there, Julian. Okay, coming over to Neil.
Yes, hi. Really informative explanation. Well, one of the things that struck me straight away was the way that you engaged with the public right initially as an independent, as a non-political independent, and that's very interesting because I'm sort of torn between helping XR, knocking on doors, or the Green Party knocking on doors, but immediately you do that, you have politicized the conversation. But most people are worried about climate change, and most people are interested in local decisions. I'm just interested, how did you manage that process of whatever it was, door knocking, leaflet flying, whatever, that in such a way that you got a big response from the percentage wise in terms of the public? How did you do that?
Yes, so as I said, so this was my involvement was initially 11 years ago. None of the parties had any system really. I mean, if you tried to see who you were going to vote for in Frome for, let's say, the Tories, you'd get the name of the person, and then it would link you to the national or next level up. So probably the county Conservative Party. I mean, they didn't bother. Nothing existed. So just by having an active Facebook page, and because that did exist at the time, but obviously there's now more options, but a presence. And then we made short films that we put out there of each of us, which was really about, this is who I am, this is why I'm doing this. It wasn't even, well, I suppose it was an element of this is what I believe in, but it wasn't. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now, but I mean, I definitely would have said quite a lot of things about the environment, but as much it would have been, that I'd been at that point a school governor, my children were born here, it was that kind of thing. So it was really, this is who I am, this is why I think this is interesting. So we were trying to hit at the personal level very much, and get away from the party level. Independent is a confusing word, though. I slightly regret having used it, because what it really means is independent of the political parties. Other places have used community, and they haven't used independent in the name of the group either. So they haven't been, independents for Swindon. They've been the Swindon Community Party, or and often people have gone for choosing a good acronym as the first thing. But anyway, I mean, independent is actually confusing, and of course UKIP has an I which is independent in it too. If UKIP still exists, but so independent does mean something else. So it's a bit confusing, that, and retrospectively, I've often suggested to people that they perhaps look at not using independent because of that association for people. See what I mean? And a lot of independents traditionally are actually people who've been thrown out of their parties. So they're so far right that the Tories won't have them, or so far left that that Labour won't. So it's a slightly tainted one. Sorry, that's a bit of a digression to what you asked. But
no, it's fine. It's because climate emergency is not politics in the sense that you've got to have your manifesto. It is a concern for everyone, or should be, and it's the question of just getting that message out. So yeah, no, I understand exactly what you were saying.
So I think that can help, and my understanding from Phoenix in the past is that that there's never been a 3-line whip of you must call this thing a climate emergency centre, and many of you have chosen. I mean, there are other names out there of yeah, being a community centre or I think even nearly. Or one of you said that that's not what yours isn't called. It has another name, which I think is really important because it's locally owned, and yes, there will be things to do with the climate because we should all be concerned about the climate. Again, the climate comes in as common sense rather than a sort of XR led nail you from head to the motorway thing that you don't want to get involved in.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I've probably got a couple of bits of comment and a couple of questions or whatever. I've found it absolutely amazing and fascinating what you're doing there. I suppose your last few sentences there lead me on to what Danny, who's down there, Daniel Gordon, who's helped on many of our centres the last 10, 15 years, reminding people, we set the climate emergency centres up as decentralised, autonomous. Each of them call themselves what they want, the Swindon Community Hub, the Guildford Zero, the Preston's call themselves the Climate Emergency Centre, whatever they want to call themselves, they're independent, but we work together as a network and how we can help each other and learn from each other and accelerate and really scale up what we're doing. I suppose I really feel, our political system time and again at local government and at main Westminster level has shown that it's completely broken. It's based on a 19th century system that they only slowly reformed when we, gradually could get power back from the top. What you're doing is, bottom up. And as Buckminster Fuller said, we need to create the new paradigm next to the old paradigm. The old one will fall away. So I like your diagram there at the end. What's the notes? The system of influence. We've even had government departments getting in touch with us asking what to do because I don't think government knows enough what to do in this present situation. And people do have the solutions if given the space, the skills, the funding. So I'm interested a little bit in your process there. I've always been interested in flatback democracy. A lot of the political parties take your vote and then they do whatever Labour or Conservative in Westminster tell them to do rather than what the local people want. So you basically said, first of all, what year was it that you were doing this? And you said you created, I've got a couple of questions kind of thing. There was, instead of 8 panels, you went down to 2 committees. Instead of 8 committees, you streamlined down to 2 and then recreate. What were the 2 committees? And did you find you had to create other ones after that? And the other kind of question is, so you kind of ran people's assemblies at these panels at football clubs, rugby clubs and all the rest. We want to build in people's assemblies to climate emergency centres. So were they kind of like people's assemblies that you publicised that then brainstorm the strategy and the policy for the independent council? And so they were run like people's assemblies, facilitators. Just tell us a little bit more about that. Over.
Sure. So there are a few questions there, aren't there? Let me do them in reverse order, and then I can, because I've probably forgotten the first one. No, I wrote down the second one. So the panels were, yes, they were run like people's assemblies, but with a particular subject, as I know, many people's assemblies are. So they did have a subject like how should we, how should we improve the access to and or to sport in Frome, kind of thing was the big question. But yeah, that's exactly what they were. They were effectively people's panels. Now we didn't, people's assemblies. And actually, the structure is not that different now. I think about it, because we definitely had lots of tables and people coming up and speaking. So it's a very similar thing. As I say, we were doing that. I mean, it's not, no one has been claiming that either citizens' assemblies or people's assemblies were invented by XR, or versions of that have been done for years, haven't they? So that, yes, that is what we were doing, and we did it on different areas of work. The committees. The deputy clerk, so the sort of second in charge at the council when we got there, said that he spent 65% of his time, 2/3 of his time was spent writing agendas and minutes for committees. And that was partly why we thought, hang on a minute, we're spending whatever it would have been, 25 grand, 30 grand a year, for this person. And that 2/3 of their time is writing his bloody minutes. Because anything that's official, because of course the council has to have a set of rules. You can't just abandon the lot. You are taking people's money, you are taxing the people and then using it on their behalf or with them. And so there have to be audits and all that kind of stuff. And in the same way, there have to be committees that, where minutes are kept and so on and so on. But a lot of these you only needed 3 people at them. So the quorum, 2 was a quorum, and they just sort of met and did things. Nobody had time to read what the hell they were doing. They'd be particularly around little bits of work, or you might. I think there was one which was particular around staff employment things. Which anyway, what we did was we made 2 committees, one of which dealt with the internal stuff. This is how the council is run. This is what's going on, the budget, the staff, those sorts of things. And the other was the outside, all the outside organisations. And that's worked pretty much like that ever since, and has worked really well. The one thing which was bounced in and out a little bit in terms of being a committee or not is planning. Because at the level we are, the council doesn't make decisions. It has to be consulted by the higher level, which does make the decisions, but it doesn't make decisions. It makes recommendations. But many people in Frome would come to the committee meetings and they tell you for hours and hours about how their neighbour's dormer window was going to overlook their house or something. You'd tell them what you thought, or tell them what the rules say about this, and the rules usually said tough. If they want to build a dormer window of that size, I'm sorry, the rules are that they can. And they got very upset and went home again. But they thought that they had they'd done their bit. They hadn't really. They needed to have their hand held. If they wanted to take it further, they needed to have their hand properly held and for it to be taken to the next level. So what we did was we said we haven't got a planning committee anymore. And people went, what? You can't not have a planning committee? We said, no, we've got a planning advisory group. We will advise you on how to take forward planning issues. And then what we did as a council was big issues, like big new housing developments in Frome, which lots of people cared about and were really big deal. We effectively became a lobbying, supported people to lobby. Make any sense? So we would work with the people to form a campaign to oppose, or in some cases work with the people to kind of go, this needs tweaking, but it's, we know it's going to happen, but let's tweak it like that. So it's
incredible.
It's common sense, really.
Created local system change. You went in and changed things around to see what works best for the local community, and consult with the local community, brought them in on board and part of the process. Absolutely brilliant, because so many people feel disconnected. They don't know how the parish council, the local council, the town council, the county council even works. Most people, the council is this,
the council
complain at sometimes.
Exactly.
Really great to get more people involved with the whole process. People have agency. Fascinating. Should we just come over to Helen here in sunny Leeds for a question? I think, we're getting close to time, but Helen, and anyone else who's got the last few questions? Peter,
I suppose the thing that surprised me in what you were saying was there was a group of you who all stood as independents, and yet some of them were quite right wing and some were quite left wing. How come that happened?
So what that's dependent on, Helen, and there's not time for me to go into lots of detail of this. There's lots of this actually in both books, because other groups have done it differently. Our feeling, well, what happened is, and again, the proof is in the pudding, if you like, that at a local level, people, their party politics doesn't necessarily impact how they feel about an issue. So that There's a guy called Nick White in Frome who was courted by UKIP to stand for them and was pretty right wing. He was born in Frome. His children were, were born here. His wife runs the theatre. He's very much a Frome man. And his wife said, Nick White and Peter McFadden in one room, this will never work. Over 8 years, we've become quite close friends because it turned out that on most things we actually agree. When it comes to whether you should get rid of the footbridge or turn it into, I don't know, well, in that case, whether you should get rid of the a footbridge over the river, which was controlled by the county, he and I both felt very strongly that it needed to be retained. I don't really care what his views on immigration are. I mean, we did, as we got to know each other, have jocular and piss-takey conversations in the pub about these things, but within the work that we were doing for Frome Town Council, none of that ever came up. Because we would no more disagree than somebody who has all the same kind of, I mean, I might easily disagree with someone, but they might be someone who was lefty and green. Do you know what I mean? They're not, if you take all that out, so that's
it's just more the fact that there was a load of you all there that weren't Labour or, it's a fact.
Well, you don't. Well, we were saying right from the beginning, leave that baggage. You can have all that baggage. Oh, baggage. You can be a member of any party, and 2 or 3 of us were members of parties, but we just don't bring it into these discussions. We just don't, it's not legit to talk to us about how, the Lib Dem manifesto says that you can do this, that, or the other. We don't care. All we care about what you think about the footpath. See what I mean? And so we were fairly vigorous about that sort of thing, and pushing each other. And as I say, that you're right, but that's one of the bits that takes a bit of getting used to. And that's what word independence.
It's all right. I'd love to do something like this, but we have had non-Morley Borough independents as well as Morley Borough independents standing, and people look at the list and go, oh, well, they might as well all be in the group, and they vote for the Morley Borough independents, and it's like, no, the Conservatives. Yeah,
no, it sounds like, because I read your note in the chat, and that's where Morley clearly has a bunch of people who are called Morley Borough independents who are anything but,
there's 2 new ones who don't seem as bad, so maybe it'll turn. The last 2 new ones to come in, but anyway.
If it didn't sound like outrageous salesmanship, I'd say buy them a bunch of books and give them to them. I mean, my books, because I mean, it's possible. You just have to, and sorry, and what you describe is not uncommon. Particularly, people describe themselves as independent at a sort of Morley level or a Frome level, and then they stand as Labour or whatever, at the next level. So they patently are a Lib Dem, but they stand as an independent because they say, oh, everybody's an independent at this level. We're all mates and we all get on. But it's bollocks. They don't, because they actually group themselves with their other independents.
Yeah, I think it's also they find it quite useful to say dreadful things about Labour, because then anything that does come about in Morley is because of them. Yeah. And anything that doesn't is because of the ruling dominant Leeds party.
Yeah.
I think more as, climate change hits, and we do see, Shropshire Council suddenly offered a climate emergency centre to one of the local groups. And I was quite surprised. And I turned on the BBC News and Shropshire had 4 foot of water flooding in through the front doors of their pubs. Whether you're Labour, Conservative, Independent or various others, it doesn't matter which party you vote for, your house is still going to get flooded.
Still wet.
We need to really find common ground and cooperation, and there's lots of things we disagree on, but there are things that we can cooperate and find common ground on, from the footbridge to what are we going to do on flood defences, what are we going to do on renewables for the cost of greed crisis or whatever it is. And hopefully through climate emergency centres, we're hoping to, build some more people's assemblies, direct democracy into the process, and support Flatpack democracy. One of the things Tony Benn said, bless him, he's passed on now, but what he said when we occupied Parliament Square against the illegal wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, we called it, originally it was called the People's Assembly of Parliament Square, because Copenhagen Climate Summit had called for everyone, indigenous groups, NGOs and the rest, to set up people's assemblies. We called it People's Assembly of Parliament Square, and Tony Benn said this is the politics of the future. The
politics of the street, where people come out and discuss what they really want. And, you know, Flatpack democracy is another model that we want to cooperate and work with through CECs to, you know, get local groups cooperating across divides, find common ground. You know, the wolf really is at the door. The storms are coming, the floods, the waves, the rest. We need to get beyond some of the smaller views and into the bigger picture, beyond borders, beyond things, and cooperate together very, very fast, particularly.
Sure. Phoenix, just one thing I would say is that the other bit of, you know, having written Flatpack democracy, I don't believe in democracy, and you know, the other name is creating independent. Is a DIY guide, and I realised later that it's got some good ideas, you know, and we've got some good experience, but it's not. These things aren't replicable exactly. You can't have a sort of a box and you take it out like IKEA. It doesn't happen like that. And the other seeing, you know, that you come from Preston, Debs, you know, the Preston model gets talked about a lot. And it's a really interesting model, and it can work in some places, but and I know that a lot of places have gone, oh, this is really good, let's do it. And actually you can't, because you're too small, or you're not, there are factors that don't work. So I would say there are bits in this which I'm really happy to share with people. If you know, anyone watching this either here or later sees it and thinks, oh, I'd love to do this. It may well not, you know, the way we did it probably won't work, or there are things that we did that we now know other places that have tweaked in different ways. So I think it, you know, it's evolved as these things should, and there are bits and pieces that are interesting about this. I think mostly the interesting thing is that most councils at a you know, at a grassroots, at a community level, are very open. It's very possible to, if you can't influence them, to take them over, and to then change things from the inside out. And it needn't be hard work. It can be really good fun. I had more fun in 8 years than I had for years, you know. And but that's what I said from the beginning. If this isn't fun, I'm out. You know, well, all of us did, because we basically said we're not going to sit in those sorts of those crap old meetings dressed up in suits and insult people. We didn't want to take it over and work the same system. We wanted to change it and make it something which we enjoyed doing and was really useful. So I think that's the message which I would leave with, really.
This is actual direct, you know, system change, and that's exactly what we need. People talk about how crap it is all the time and the broken system, but here is ways you can create system change, this and ecocide and others. So folks, I'm going to go over to a quick one for Sunny Swindon, but maybe we'll do go around the screen and just do checkouts or any parting comment or feedback you just want to say about the fascinating talk we've heard tonight. Really want to support this through climate emergency centres, learn from it. You know, at every level, we need to change our system and our democratic system in various different ways. So how can we adopt this in our area? Maybe get hold of the Flatpack Democracy book and have a talk or a workshop at your centre. Over to Julian and Sunny Swindon, and then we'll go around for checkouts or parting comments from all you lovely folk. Thank you very much for coming and giving us your time. Thank you very much to Peter. Julian, Sunny Swindon.
Thanks. Yes. Sorry, I should have asked this before, really. I was just wondering if you could sort of give some examples of the best things that you've achieved there in terms of climate and environment type stuff, you know, to round it off, because it sounds marvelous. And I just, you know, wonder what the most inspiring things you thought were coming out of it in that way.
Yeah, there's masses. So we employed the first regeneration officer in the country at the time, you know, the first full-time employee working on climate issues. And that was incredibly important, because she was able to really help organizations, you know, to within the town in ways that they'd never had before, to access funds and resources. And Frome, well, there's 4 of those staff now, or equivalent in Frome's town council. I mean, it's mainly through supporting. It's back to what I started at the beginning. So like there's a renewable energy co-op in Frome. The town council has been crucial in supporting them and giving them little bits of help in different ways. And we're in the middle of trying to get planning permission for the biggest land-based wind turbine you've ever seen. And the town council's you know, going to be really important in you know, if we manage to pull that off, they'll be really important as an ally. So being an ally to other organizations is been incredibly important. And a lot of that has been green and environmental stuff. As I say, because it's common sense. I mean, like with the wind turbine now, why would you not want it? You know, so Frome can get cheaper electricity that we own, that, you know, the money can go into insulating houses in Frome. It's like, okay, so a few views will get a bloody great big pink wind turbine in them, but bless them, they'll love it in a while.
Yeah, thank you. That's brilliant. And yeah, I must read. Is that in the books or online or?
The Freeco bit isn't. That's the climate, the wind turbine bit isn't, because it's.
Maybe you could post something in the chat, links to the books, Peter. Maybe people get hold of it, and we would love to network any of this through the centres and encourage more groups to do it. We need system change very, very, very fast. And I think we've had Jamie Kelsey-Fry on previously talking about people's assemblies. He's due to come back for a second session on a kind of global assembly project that they're working on as well. We absolutely need to change the system very, very fast to politicians and people's assemblies to actually listen to what's really needed so that we can get on with the solutions through these different centres and spaces and hopefully get some funding and some skill sharing going on. All right, guys, thank you very much for your precious time. We're going to go around the screen just for a checkout. You can say a passing comment or feedback to Peter about what you thought. So going over to Ken in sunny North Dorset. Over.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Peter. Just full disclosure, I'm Green Party parliamentary candidate for my sins, not because I want to be in bloody Parliament, but because somebody's got to do it to make sure there's another name on the ballot for people to at least put their cross against. So yeah, I'm a parish councillor. Everybody knows I'm the Greenie. I managed to get them to declare a climate emergency. That was hard work. But interestingly, the Conservative, he's the Conservatives' elections agent now.
All right.
Retired banker. You wouldn't understand that, I'm sure. Retired banker and Conservative. Anyway, he's the chairman. He swung the casting vote in favour of the CEC, so the CWE rather. So I thought, okay, fair enough. Got a little, just the way things have worked out for me. So I got a community, a little group going, an environmental group, and the people who came along to that are obviously of the same mind. So although they're not declared Green Party people, they're of the mind that we need to do something. And what's happened is now that through getting involved with the little climate group, they're now beginning to come onto the parish council and the village hall committee and just beginning to influence things that way. So we're kind of a bit subversive, really.
Yeah, no, yeah, that way round is, I hopefully will happen more and more. No, I mean, good for you for getting in there. And I'm not anti-party. I just think these things need to run in different ways. And, I think it's fantastic. And people, people like Caroline Lucas have made a massive difference over the years. Bless her. I mean, God, what an endlessly awful task being the one voice, but fantastic that she's done that. And
absolutely, yeah. So subversion works as well. But you're full on, you're full on assault was a good one as well. I like that. Excellent, Julian.
Thanks, Ken. It'd be great to hear from you sometime. That sounds really interesting as well. I've probably said enough, so I shouldn't say much more today. And pass on to Neil.
Unmute, Neil.
Sorry, yes, sorry, I couldn't find it for a minute. Yep, no, thank you very much, Peter. It was fascinating, and I will definitely explore further your publications and more detail. Yeah, really enjoyed it. I've already listened to a podcast that you did with the BBC. So yeah, really interested. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Deb's in sunny Preston. University
Yeah,
Challenge.
it's raining today, but it's still warm. It's really too warm, isn't it? Yeah, I've been talking to the councillors. I think like in Preston where we are, we have this funny thing where we've got the borough council and we've got the county council. So they're like, one will say, well, we're doing this and other one's doing something else. And so they don't seem to like talk with each other, I don't think. And they're always like in the consultation stage before the planning, aren't they? That's what they always seem to be. Oh, well, we're having a meeting on that. We're just consulting on it. So yeah, but I did do something. Yeah, I'll pass to Ken. Have you been?
Sorry, yes, I've been, Debs.
Helen, then.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Peter and everyone. That's really good and very timely for us in Seaford because 2 years after declaring a climate emergency, and then a year after that, they decided to set up a climate change committee. And they've finally, a year after that, managed to arrange a meeting of the climate change committee tomorrow. So So, you know, it's going well. And we're going along to propose or some people's assemblies as a way to, you know, help them with their plans. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's going to be a long old haul, but we'll see what happens, because we've started doing people's assemblies in the hub and stuff. And I think, you know, we just want to be more fun than them. and it kind of might start drawing them towards us, you know, because I'm just very reluctant to go anywhere near the council, to be frank. I feel like we need to create something parallel.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know what that would look like, but, and then eventually when they're all really bored, they can give us the golf course and we'll have food on it.
Brilliant. We would like to hear some more updates from you guys, Helen. That's fantastic, particularly on your people's assemblies. If you're doing them, pop something on the main Telegram chat or email us about it, and we'll try and put it around. If we can show, you know, that they're doing people's assemblies in Islington and you guys and various other places, it will spread, and then we create that, you know, parallel system and other systems and Flatpack. Do you want to pass to anyone, Helen?
Yeah, Mary.
Okay, thanks. Great session, Peter. Very, very invigorating and uplifting, especially with the times that we're in. I hadn't seen that model before, and I like that idea of networking and connecting, which is one of the strong points, I think, of our physical CEC and Woking. So I will persevere and carry on and wait for that tipping point to happen. So thank you. Over to Vanessa.
Hello, sorry, I'm travelling on the train at the moment, so I've sort of been a bit in and out. So I'm looking.
Sunny Staines, come in, over, west side, east side.
Just gone into a tunnel.
Oh, have
Yeah,
I?
keep going.
Sorry.
Keep going.
All right, okay. So yeah, we are sort of working on sort of having people's assemblies sort of in the early new year. We're sort of doing this model where we're working with Open University and the council and then community, which is going to be us. So it's sort of like a bit of a triangle sort of model, and to bring people in that, you know, haven't got a voice. And that's what we've got the funding for. So yeah, so we'll be going out meeting groups and hopefully doing that in the new year. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to catching up on the whole talk. I'm sorry, I've missed quite a bit of it. Back to you, Phoenix. Sorry, I don't know who's.
That's cool. Spoken. That's brilliant, Ness. Please keep us posted on that so we can inspire the rest of the network. People's assemblies are really starting to happen through the CECs now. Okay, Daniel, are you with us? Who reminds me on the decentralized autonomous networks? Daniel?
Yeah, I'm here.
Parting comment, feedback? Well, do you want to check out or final comment, feedback, over?
Just compost the system, that's why I can say to everyone. Compost.
I thought of you when Peter's in his diagrams got compost the system. Daniel, we sent out to Switzerland some big Euro networks meeting, and they came back with compost the system, and we need to create a mycelium of projects that grow up in every city.
Which are identified by label.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. I think we're getting near time. This has been a fascinating one. Pius in sunny Uganda, do you want to give us a little feedback or comment?
Thank you very much. I thank Peter for the idea. You know, it's a new way of organizing communities, and it's something we should try, since we've been using one way of organizing communities, and it looks good in mobilizing people, putting them together to bring up some good ideas. I would just like to thank him. I've been learning a lot. You know, it's a system that seems not to work for other countries, but it's a really good idea. I've loved it.
Fantastic, Pius. We'll be in touch. We're looking forward to you to come and do a talk about the climate change education in schools you're doing in Uganda. Who hasn't spoken? Is there anyone there? That, have we all checked out? Deb, CJ? Okay, I think that's everyone, folks. Peter, I'll thank you so much for coming. Please send us any material you can and we'll get it out around the CCs. We talk so much about system change, folks, and what we really want to see is what does that actually look like and how do we build it? And this is one of the ways that we build it, through people's assemblies once a month or two at our climate emergency centres and Flatpack democracy. Let's take the power back into our communities. And also, you know, the more people's assemblies we can build, the more. I think that was a beautiful example from Peter there about how they ran the panels in the local football, rugby, cricket clubs, and people came together and talked for 2 hours and then mingled afterwards. And you've got so many good ideas in. So all power to you, Peter. Let's keep at it. I'll leave you for the parting word. Anything you want to share with the group? Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. It's great.
Thank you.
Happy birthday!
Oh yeah, happy birthday. That can be the final word. Happy birthday, Phoenix. Go on the streets of Brighton. There's plenty of action out there still. That'll do. No, but thanks for asking me. I've been wanting to do this for ages.
After this, I think.
Yeah, bye for now.
Brilliant. All right, thanks very much, folks. Thanks very much to Peter. Check out the website, Flatpack Democracy, network it, set something up in your area, do what your local community wants, system
Brilliant.
change. Thanks very much, Peter. Thanks everyone for an hour of your precious time. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, all.
Save the chat. Nice one. Julian, I want love.
Yeah, very good as ever. Thanks, Phoenix. Another great one.
That was, yeah, brilliant. Really, really good. All right, just trying to save the chat. All right, that's it.
Yep.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a lovely time in Brighton. Bye.
Will do. I'll bounce soon. Thanks.